Hello. So good to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the invitation. I'm really glad. And I jumped at the opportunity to reflect on this topic about ancestral healing, generational healing, and in particular, I want to look at ancestral belonging, especially when it's complicated. So I'll start first with names. Names are a place where my mind has often gone when I'm thinking about clues to my ancestors. I'll start with my given first name. So my parents named me Claire, after Claire Huxtable, which if you don't know is the mom on The Cosby Show. And specifically, she and my dad picked one-syllable names for me and my brother because they didn't want any nicknames. My parents are named Patricia and Richard. There's a lot of nicknames for those names. And they're like, nope, just Claire. My last name is Müller. I learned that it used to be Müller. And I remember as a young adult, a child, asking, are we German? And my father answering really emphatically, no. We are American. And even at a young age, I was like, what? I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I'm confused. But the truth of what I was really asking is, who are we? What are our traditions, our songs, our foods? Do I get like a national costume? I want all of the juicy heritage. And as I got to be a bitter teenager, I literally remember complaining to my older brother that it seemed like everything good in America came from Black people. All I have is blue jeans and apple pie, and it sucks. And I was bitter about it. I wanted that cultural inheritance. I wanted to belong somewhere deeply through space and time. I wanted to feel held. I wanted to feel ancient, a real, true home. And this kind of yearning, if you've ever had it, can lead to kind of weird places, like my own yearning and looking at Black Americans' culture. That's how you get to cultural appropriation, right? Sometimes think of that as cultural vampirism. When a person, like myself, I'm a white human, from a dominant culture is like, I want. And that does so without proper respect or credit. Luckily, I never tried to be Black, thank God. But I definitely did daydream about being Native American, about what my spirit animal would be. I would drift to that store in the mall where they sold dream catchers. I was that kid. I am not Native American. I'm a bit complicated. Based on my research, I'm at least 8 kinds of European. Irish, Welsh, Scottish, English, German, Swedish, Norwegian, Polish, maybe some Balkans, maybe some Russian. Any cousins in the room? Yeah. Looking for ancestral belonging gets complicated when it literally spans 1,700 miles. I looked it up. That's about the same as here to the middle of Nebraska. And then to add complication, my family has been here for 5 to 15 generations. That's 150 to 400 years away from that land, from all those places in Europe. So honestly, things are not only a bit stale, but there's also all of this white assimilation that's coming through. You heard it with my dad. White assimilation being, of course, the ways that my ancestors let go of all of that juicy heritage to access power, to access privilege. According to family legend, when my grandfather was 11 years old, he and his German-born father, my great-grandfather, went down from their triple-decker in JP to Boston City Hall to change their name for the turn of the century. Let's assimilate, why don't you? They went from Karl Heinrich Müller, Jr. and Sr. to Charles Henry Miller, Jr. and Sr. He was 11. I just constantly wonder, like, what was that like? Did he want it? Did he understand? Was he confused? Honestly, all I really know about him is that he grew up to dislike immigrants and taught my dad that we were not German. So that speaks volumes, right? I gave myself the name Karl. As I've just told you, it's a family name. But here's the thing most people don't know about the name Karl. It's what it means. When Germanic society was still pretty class-oriented, there were basically three groups. There were the earls, who were the nobles. There were the thralls, who were the slaves. And then there were the Karls, means freeman. And that name is one of the most common names throughout Europe. Charlotte, Charles, those are all derivatives of the name Karl, of that wish and desire for freedom. So I've spent all this time trying to fill out my family tree, trying to figure out, untangle this complication, this staleness, the ways that whiteness has blanched out my heritage. And it still hasn't gotten me there, to that ancestral belonging. It's been like a hole in my soul. I'll never forget this moment in college where students were invited to share a cultural practice from their heritage. And I sat in the audience and I wanted to cry. I just felt like I don't have anything. There's nothing for me to offer. I wasn't given anything, no song or dance or tradition. So next, I started this kind of strange research project of when were my European ancestors last indigenous? What does indigenous mean exactly? It is a political identity with a, definition of the United Nations. It's also a way of living, life-affirming culture. When did my European ancestors last live in a truly life-affirming culture? And I'll spare you the long, extended journey of that research question and tell you the short answer. I have no idea. It's complicated. I mean, you could look at the 700s when Charlemagne went and cut down the sacred oak trees, groves that my Germanic tribe ancestors worshipped in, and forcibly converted them to Christianity, taking those oak trees and building churches. I love that my people have a history of sacredness with trees. The Irish, Welsh, Scottish, English do as well. So maybe it was before that. Maybe it's even older. Maybe it was 89 when the Cherusci tribe in northern Germany defeated the Romans. Now, I don't know about you, but in middle school, there was an entire section about how amazing the Romans were. Anybody have that section? Right? Ugh. They brought roads and civilization. It was amazing. No. As an adult, sniffing around, I've decolonized that story, and I've learned the names of European tribal leaders who resisted the imperialism, who resisted that empire. Why didn't we learn their history? Boudica in England, Vercingetorix, and now France. and my personal favorite, Arminius. Definitely a Latin name. We don't know his true Germanic name, but he was from the Cherusci tribe. So a little background, so you can truly appreciate how cool he is. When Romans come to colonize you, the first stage is they're like, here's a road, just pay us taxes, it'll be cool. And people are like, okay, you are really intense, sure, that seems scary. And then they keep coming back, and it gets more intense. And one of those stages is they take the firstborn sons of the chiefs, and they take them back to Rome and raise them through the army to assimilate. It's one of the types of genocide, right? Arminius was one of those sons, and he was successful. He rose through the ranks of the Roman army, and eventually they said, hey, we're going back to keep colonizing Germania. You want to come? And he went back. But it turns out, when he got back, he realized the truth of what was happening. And he organized a secret revolt of all the Germanic tribes, sucker punched the Romans into going to this terrible valley that was really vulnerable, and destroyed 3 legions. That's like 20,000 Romans, and literally is credited with the fall of the Western Roman Empire. This is such a cool story. If you want to see more, there's a Netflix special about him. It's called Barbarians, because that is what the Romans called my ancestors, the barbarians. It's the equivalent of the Pilgrims calling the Native Americans savages. So I could dork out on that a lot longer. But it still hasn't brought me that real intense belonging that I wanted. It still feels complicated. So next, I went to Germany. I decided, you know what, maybe I'll go there and I'll stand in the land and I'll feel something. I literally went to one of the few remaining primeval beech tree forests in all of Europe. I stood there under that canopy and I looked at them like the song. And I tried to say, am I here? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Is this where I can feel something? And I missed the ocean. So I grew up here in Massachusetts, and every time I step out of Logan, especially in the summer, I don't know if you have this experience, but when it's muggy, the smell of the ocean kind of slaps you in the face. That's the moment when I'm like, Boston. There's something there, right? That's undeniable. Native American Penobscot writer and lawyer Sherry Mitchell says that the iron in our blood orients to the magnetic place where you're born. Now, I don't really have any idea what that means on a molecular level, but I love it. I'm like, there it is. There's a crumb of my belonging here. I'm certainly not trying to be Native American. That's not what that is, but I do feel something here. I know well the outline of a white pine. I know what a chickadee sounds like. I can spot wild strawberries here or skunk cabbage. In Robin Wall-Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, I'm assuming many people here have read it, she says pretty clearly that you can't become indigenous. But she also says maybe you can be naturalized. And if you don't know, in botany, naturalization are non-native plants, that's me, that grow and reproduce on their own in a new environment, but with almost no negative impact. They've become part of the ecosystem in a way that weaves in, that works. That is definitely what I would like to be. I'd like to be a non-native species in a new ecosystem that's also contributing positively. So, I didn't find a true home in my DNA tests, in my research, in my trips to Europe. That part of me is complicated by ethnicities, by centuries, by white supremacy. And my relationship here will always be complicated by colonialism, and I'm not going to skip over any of that. But the side benefit that I never anticipated is that by knowing all of these things and having explored all of these routes, I've suddenly slowly become more comfortable in myself, in my own skin. I know more of my own story, whether it was 2,000 years ago or my grandparents. And at the end of the day, I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, my ancestors are definitely laughing at me right now because I finally put it together. My first name, Claire, means clear. And my middle name is Barbara, which means barbarian. And so my ancestors sent me a message in a bottle that I am clearly a barbarian. I am clearly fighting against empire. And that is the home that is most true. And so may we all heal through the generations of oppression, honor the indigenous people of whose lands we are on, and be at home together in our movements for liberation. May we heal the generations of oppression together and know that we have our ancestors with us. Blessed be.